I wanted to show you guys the problem with auto supports. So, I'm not opposed to using auto supports when, I guess when it works. Obviously, when it does not work, which is often, or rather, when it takes quite a bit to make it work, in those instances, you should just use manual supports. And if you don't know how to manually support your model, I would highly recommend learning. It is a skill that you are going to want to develop, especially if you plan on sticking around this hobby. If you guys want me to do some videos detailing manual supports and how to basically, I never have failures when it comes to supports. Like, I've been printing for 3 years and I haven't had a failure in like maybe 2, due to supports. I've had other kind of failures, but never to supports failing. So the reason why auto supports is not reliable, one, well, I was going to say that the software is kind of guessing where it needs to place the supports, but it does a pretty good job at knowing where supports need to go. So as you can see at the start of the model, all this red needs to be filled with supports, and that's accurate. However, it's going to fill in a lot of unnecessary supports, and we can actually demonstrate this. So we're at a 32% density, so not fairly dense, which means that 32% of the surface is going to be filled with supports. So if I go ahead and hit all for auto supports, we're using heavy supports. You generally want to use heavy supports, especially for a print this large. This is on a Frozen Sonic Mighty 4K, so this is about a 20 centimeter print, so that's a decent size. As you can see, it printed out on all the red spots. However, it has a quite a bit of unnecessary supporting going on. A lot of irritating supports to the supports that is just, it's just unnecessary. Now, supporting two supports is sometimes a good thing, but the auto support function tends to overdo it quite a bit. And you can see all these little points where it's not sticking to the model, it's sticking to another support. This is all unnecessary supports for the most part. So that's one instance of unnecessary supporting. Another issue with auto supports is, as you can see, it prints on the very edge a lot of the time. So this makes sense for a lot of areas, but not always. Now, this is a pretty rounded shape, so as you can see, the more angular shapes, it's going to print quite a bit on the edge. And what happens when it does that, if I can get an angle on there, so my support setting is kind of adjust for this, but a lot of times these supports will kind of come out on the sides. Hard to show with the example that I have here, but essentially what you would need to do is you need to kind of adjust it like that to pull it from the side, because the auto supports places it so close to the edge that the support bleeds onto this side, and that's just more cleanup work. So that's another example of why auto supports are inferior to manually supports. So the unnecessary supports, and here's another example of unnecessary supports. For example, here, this is on an angle that's going to print perfectly fine on its own. So look at all that. Look at all these supports that are supporting itself to just this one guy. All that is unnecessary. So if I come over here to show you guys, that's unnecessary, that's unnecessary. Well, this is unnecessary, this is unnecessary. Delete all that. Look at all that resin that we just saved. So not only are you saving resin, because supports, these are really thin. You're not using a ton of resin to when you're printing unnecessary supports. But the main thing that I'm concerned about is I hate post-processing. I hate sanding. I hate cleaning up the prints before painting. I just want the print to be as perfect as possible before painting, so that it comes out good. But if you have supports like this, especially if they're heavy, because you're auto-generating it, so they're all going to generate to one size, then you're going to have a little mark there, and you're going to have to clean that up, and it's just extra work that you could save if you either knew how to adjust for manual supports. Jesus, my dog just coughed. If you knew how to adjust for auto supports, meaning, like, for example, I can auto support this, and I can go through and delete all these unnecessary supports and add supports where I think it needs it. This is definitely a weak spot right here. Just 3 of these. I'm definitely adding more over here, because this is a island. This whole arm is going to print by itself, and just those 3 supports is not going to hold this whole thing up. So again, if you're familiar with how supporting, if you get the general idea of supports and where they should be, which at that point you really should be manually supporting. But again, sometimes auto supporting does save a little bit of time to where you can go through and, okay, let me make sure that the auto supports supported everywhere where it needed. I'm going to delete where it didn't need it, and I'm going to add where it didn't add them. Then auto supports is not a bad tool to have. Now the biggest problem with auto supports is when you're printing hollow prints, because almost always you're going to get a ton of supports on the inside. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize, that this is just a absurd waste of resin. You're hollowing the print to save on resin in the first place, and now you're basically infilling it with all this unnecessary supports. And I know it's unnecessary, because if let's remove it and let's go through and look at if there are any islands on the inside. Because that's one thing about hollowing your prints, is that you need to ensure that if there are islands, you do want to add supports on the inside. But I looked through this already, and I know for a fact that there are no islands. That all of this is going to print out perfectly fine. So it put a lot of supports on the leg right here, where it's coming. See how it's growing? See how it's red on the inside? So it thinks it needs supports there, but a circular area like this is able to print out perfectly fine. All one by one layer, it's able to hold its shape together without any supports. This is perfectly fine. Now maybe if this is like a huge circle, then you might want to add supports. But at this scale, at this size, that's going to print out perfectly fine. So same with this side here. So I don't know if you guys saw before, but it had this arm filled with supports, and that's completely unnecessary. This is going to, as long as you support this here to hold the arm up, the interior, and this, the other side of this arm, this top part, it's going to print out just fine. Yeah, all that's going to print out just fine without any supports inside. Maybe if you want to add one right there, but even then, that's going to print fine. So if we keep looking. And this is something you definitely want to do. Look through the model, especially the interior, if you plan on using auto supports. Maybe right there. Add some supports. That's on the outside. Yeah, well, all this is perfectly good to print. This is going to print perfectly fine. All that's going to print perfectly fine without any supports. So, it's going to be a pain in the butt to remove all that from the inside. And so that's the one downside. I wish there was maybe there is, and I don't know it, a function tool to highlight a bunch of supports at once. Maybe then it would be worth using. But unfortunately, going through and just clicking all these, at that point, you should just go ahead and manually support it, because one, it's probably going to take about the same amount of time, and two, you're going to get a lot better of a result manually supporting than you are using the auto supports. Even if it comes out properly, even if this is able to print out fully complete, you're still going to have a lot of areas where there's just more work involved, and so it's just not worth it, in my opinion. There are instances where auto supports works perfectly fine. I have his tail here, so if I were to, for example, let me position this, something like that. So if I were to come over here, heavy, auto supports, look at that. That's pretty good. Now I would probably be I would, like, again, like, that's an unnecessary support. A lot of these are unnecessary. I would want to go through and, like right here, that's going to be an island right there. So sometimes, there you go. There's an example of where auto supports don't always Yeah, look at that. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers until a support catches it. So that's the problem with auto supports, is that it's prioritizing these two supports for whatever reason, as opposed to this right here. And so I don't know if that would be enough for a complete failure, but you know, you would have some issues during the print process for sure. And so this is an example where auto supports, even on a very very simple shape, the auto supports didn't work out too well. Maybe if you increase the density, then it would work. But again, it's just a lot more work having to go through, delete every single one of these that are unnecessary, going back, ensuring that, oh, it didn't print, or it didn't add it here, I got to go back and add it here. It didn't add enough here, I got to add enough here. Whereas the better option, the better method, is to go layer by layer. Yes, it's more slow, it's more methodical, but you are giving far more attention to the print than if you were to just use the auto support function. And so again, it's going to come out a lot better using the manual support function. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I really just wanted to show you guys, demonstrate, you know, why auto supports are not good. A lot of times. Again, sometimes they do work out really well. This was not, I was hoping this would be a better example, but unfortunately, the auto supports, I would not classify that as great auto supporting. Often, 90% of the time, I'll use auto supports on simple round bases. And then I'll go through and, you know, add more if I need to, or take away any, and that I can auto support a base in like 2 minutes. But auto supporting something like this, going through and making sure that all these are actually necessary and that it's as clean as it can get, waste of time. Just learn how to manual support. You'll be better off for it. Your prints will be better quality, and there'll be less work involved once you do get it printed before painting. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. If you are interested in learning more about manual supports, I guess I could do a beginner guide. I guess, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you want to see like super duper beginner, like holding your hand type videos? Or are you more interested in kind of just assuming you guys get the general idea and me going through and just kind of showing you my process so you can kind of pick up some tips and tricks? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you like this video, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And if you want to see more content surrounding the 3D printing, painting, hobby painting, Gunpla, minis, that sphere, that community, do me a favor and be sure to subscribe to keep an eye out for more content, more videos, tutorials, and projects. Alrighty, so with all that being said, guys, take care.